maybe aren't quite ready to get imported. This was one of those cases where there was a whole group of grower champagne producers touring the U.S., and they came through Chicago, and we found out about it at the last minute and went down there. And there were actually a couple of really cool wines, but particularly this producer, Henri Bazin, really caught our eye. We actually do represent Terry Thies's champagnes here in Illinois. So we do spend a lot of time tasting grower champagne. So when we met Nicolas from Henri Bazin, we told him, I said, look, we taste grower champagne all the time, and you have the real stuff here. We're really, really interested to get the chance to work with you. And it takes a lot, I think, for a little winery like that to decide to go out on their own, besides just going with a national importer. So luckily his English is great, and my French is terrible. So luckily he helped me on that side. But it was one of those things where we actually tasted, the first wine from him was a Blanc de Noir. So it was actually an all Pinot Noir version. And we didn't try this wine until a little bit later, but we kept finding one after another that were very distinctive, and that's kind of what we're looking for. We're a small company. We're not trying to be big. So grower champagnes actually fit our niche quite well, and because of the restaurant support, most of the sommeliers here, when they're looking for a glass pour now, are looking for growers, and we're certainly not the only people who do them, but it is one of our dedicated categories. We have the most. There's about 17 growers that we work with now. So it works, and we're going into the really hot season at this point. Terry actually was just here a couple of days ago. We did a big luncheon and showed about 13 wines with the lunch. But in this case, it was a situation of them coming directly to us. It's a little unique because they're based in a village called Villers-Mamery, which is in the far eastern edge of Montagne de Reims, which is more known as Pinot Noir territory. This particular village actually has more of a chalk outcrop, unlike the Bellamite in most of the rest of Reims, that is really conducive to Chardonnay. So it's one of the few villages in Montagne de Reims that's actually planted more to Chardonnay than Pinot Noir. So this particular version is a combination of the Chardonnay from there and Pinot Noir from two Grand Cru villages, Verzenay and Verzy. And Verzenay is, for us, this is where I think our heartstrings get pulled, because it's one of the most penetrating styles of Pinot Noir that you come across in Montagne de Reims. Bouzy and Ambonnay are really known for those gorgeous, lush, rich styles of Pinot, where Verzenay just gives you this penetrating, haunting version of Pinot that it really has a long finish to it too. I kind of always get this combination of iron, flint, and lead pencil finishing on this style of Pinot Noir, and you can see it not just in this particular brut, but in their Blanc de Noir, in their vintage wines, and even in the rosé. A lot of times people's rosé will just be a matter of, we just make a rosé to have one. In this case, you really taste Verzenay Pinot Noir screaming through the wine. So it was really good to see. And that we look for distinctiveness, we look for harmony, we look for balance, and really I think in the end we look for soul, a wine that actually speaks. And I think we have to do a lot of educating on grower champagne, is definitely, and just like Catherine was mentioning earlier, if we're in a room getting poured against all the big guys, everyone will kind of walk by and look at what's at the table, and they won't look at you for a while, and then finally someone starts tasting, someone usually that knows us starts tasting the wines, and inevitably everybody ends up around there trying to find out what's going on, because they really speak more like what every wine should. When I taste through champagne, it's just like tasting in Burgundy for me. I think the same way of going from Vosne Romanée to Chambon-Musigny to Gerbet-Chambertin as I do from Avize to Cremant to Le Mesnil-sur-Oger to Verzenay. It's the same concept. It's just that the way champagne was always branded from the beginning was more of a blended, entire area type of wine, where in this case you really get to see some village distinctive characteristics.
Fantastic. I think it's a great champagne. I mean, it has some real elegancy to it, and like you said, some of that flintiness to it. Mm-hmm. And one of the hallmarks that I really love in champagne is a nicely aged champagne, or a champagne with some great complexity, is a little bit of coffee nuances to it. And yes, I think this shows fantastic.
It's really, there's a whole range of things. I even get lemon balm and hazelnut and all sorts of different oils going on as well. But the other thing about the growers that we always talk about as well is application at the table. If you look especially at the dosage of these wines, they're usually half as much as what you're going to see in a larger, more blended champagne. This is about 8 grams. So and that's a pretty normal level. We're seeing that kind of across the board as kind of a standard level of dosage for a lot of these growers. There's a couple of ours that are much drier. There's been this movement to even drier, more cut styles, even down to 4 grams. So a lot of them that qualify for that Brut Sauvage or Ultra Brut or Brut Zero, however you want to call it, very dry. And they really beg for food. And I was always taught on the restaurant side. I got the pleasure of working with Joe Spellman for several years at Charlie's, and one of the things he really preached about was the fact that the wine is supposed to act like an advanced sorbet. It should be cleansing your palate and making you salivate and ready to taste the next bite. And certainly high acid wines do that better than low acid wines, and I can't think of a better high acid wine than sparkling wine because it's an absolute palate cleanser. So we really, rather than people using these as celebration wines or aperitifs, we get them on the table and trying them with food, even through the meat courses. So it's really, and I actually found out the best way to do a wine pairing the other day. I'm always interested to see sommeliers' wine pairings with courses, but you're always getting, your little 2-ounce pour. I found out if you order a bottle of champagne at the same time and drink it in between courses, it's the perfect way to continue through the whole progression.
Right on. What do you think of the champagne?
Lovely.
It's
like Robert was saying, it's got that kind of iron minerality, almost a steeliness to it, and bracingly dry, and I love that. And I think I agree. These grower champagnes it's nice, I think, for food and for the opposite of kind of toasting at a party, where you want really bone dry, almost austere, and then you can really get at the fruit, the terroir, all the other characters that are there, and you're not. They're not exactly happy-go-lucky, easy-going.
Right.
There's a little bit in there that you have to kind of get to know a little bit, but with food, gorgeous, beautiful.
Yes, it is one of those, and I've noticed that with a couple other wines from Verzenay. One of our favorite producers is Jean Lallemant, which is a tiny, tiny, tiny producer, less than 3,000 cases of wine. But it's one of those wines I tell people, we love this wine, but you're really not going to get it unless you get a chance to sit with it. This isn't one you just walk in and taste and you're automatically, throwing your hands up. It's one that requires more reflection, I would say. So there are certain wines where in here, I'd say, I wouldn't say every grower is like that, but there certainly are more than not where it requires a little more thinking. It's not just the right in your face, easy, happy-go-lucky style, definitely.
Right.
I think that's what makes wine exciting, right?
Well, that's a complexity there. That's a complexity, and it's also it's a relationship, because as you sip the champagne, maybe you have one impression. As you sip another, take a bite of your food and then sip it again, it changes, and everything that's happening on your palate is getting better and better. You're building up all these pleasure tiers, and then you take a sip again, and maybe you've just had something on the plate that didn't go with it, and you're kind of, well, what is that now that I'm tasting? You have all these layers, and it's like getting to know somebody that, on first impression, maybe you weren't drawn to necessarily, but then little by little you keep going, well, I really don't like that. Yes. I really don't like that. I really don't like that. So why am I keep
going back to it?
Right.
There's certain ones that get complex enough where you realize you're in over your head. At a certain point, you're like, wow, this has got a lot going on, and I need some more time to figure this one out. But we've also gotten a chance to taste where they do different dosage levels. And really, it's just like doing great German Riesling. You're looking for the balance. And sometimes that's at 4 grams. Sometimes it's at 12 or 13. It really depends on the wine. And but we have noticed that they've really been going, a lot of producers, to a lot drier style than we've ever seen before.
So tell me,
you didn't have any special club there today, did you?
No. I would have found that in our happy cooler.
I know.
Cooler of joy.
Cooler of joy, right. So talk about, so I know we talked about dosage levels and grams of sugar, but maybe for people who just enjoy champagne and don't get as geeky maybe as you or I or Catherine do, what does that mean? When does this happen? When does the sweetness come into
It's interesting. This is really, I found out just recently when Terry was talking the other day, there's another part of that we've never really investigated, and that is the fact that there can be some residual sugar left from the second fermentation in the bottle. But as far as dosage, what we're talking about, it's really the finishing content of the wine. It's so influential on the wine, but it's the last thing that's done. Right before after they've disgorged the bottle, right before they put the cork in, they're going to add a mixture that, depending on the sugar level, they're going to add a wine mixture that has a certain amount of sugar in it or none at all. And the dosage is that last finishing touch. It's up to the winemaker, just like a chef. How do you want the wine to finish? And it's that last step that really determines how sweet the finishing wine, or dry the finishing wine, is going to be. What was interesting was, for those viewers that may not know the whole process, there is a second fermentation going on in the bottle. So the whole concept of the yeast eating sugar and turning it into alcohol and carbon dioxide, the byproduct, is being captured in that bottle. And that fermentation does not always go completely dry. So there can be leftover sugar in that process as well. So there are some people who add zero sugar at the end, but still have a little bit of residual because there's leftover sugar from the second fermentation. It's a little complex. But the other thing I would say in the process that makes growers in some cases a little different in the NV Brut category is that most of these guys are getting over 2 years to even 3 years on the lees before they release the wine. So you are getting a little more development. You're getting also what you guys talked about earlier, a little bit of that freshly baked bread yeastiness going on as well. So there's a little more time with these wines in many cases as well.
And I think a little bit of the sugar is good. A little, sometimes a little bit of sugar just kind of takes the edge off. Yes. Like if you had a really strong black tea, right. Maybe a tiny drop of sugar would take the edge off, and you don't really even taste it so much. But I think when you get to the really sweet, demi-sec champagnes, mm-hmm. that's where it can be problematic, because then you're having real
right.
sugar in there combined with the bubbles, the carbonation, and that just goes right to your head.
Right.
Yes, it's true. That can be a painful tasting if you do too many of those once. But yeah, it really is. It's the balance, and the balance is different for every taster as well. Some people think they like dry wine and find out they actually do like a decent amount of residual sugar at the end, because it can be quite bracing for people who aren't ready for that dryness. Anyone who says they like dry wine, I just pour them Barolo and then ask them if they still like dry wine.
Well, they're in good hands if that's your go-to for a little Barolo.
and the other. So let's teleport back from, we're on the planet of geek. Let's come back down to the normal level, and let's talk about food pairing with this wine. What do you think?
The thing with Pinot Noir based, it does make it more versatile, in my opinion. When you look at Blanc de Blanc or all Chardonnay champagnes, they're a little more linear, and there are a lot more combinations you can do with this that range not just from classic French style food, but I've even done Asian pairings with wines like this. One of the things when you're doing a lot of mixed appetizers or canapes that go from little foie gras terrine to some bite of tuna tartare or something like that, the Pinot Noir bases I find are a little more versatile with those. And in this case, I actually do really like red fishes like tunas and salmons and those sort of things that go along with the Pinot Noir base. The Chardonnay side of it, though, can pick up on fried foods really well. I really love the whole fried oyster combination with the Chardonnay base in the Champagne. So in this case, there's actually fewer things that don't go with it than do go with it. There's a lot more combos that you can go from the beginning even into the fuller fowl courses, I think. I like with this style of wine to look at red fishes, salmons, and tunas, and then fowl courses like duck and squab and quail. Those are kind of my favorites with this particular style.
Great. So I have to ask you before you leave us, we've been asking all of our guests to equate their champagne with an actor. What actor would this champagne be?
I think I'd probably be somewhere between Elizabeth Taylor and Sophia Loren. I like combination of elegance and beauty, but danger at the same time. So.
We like that. So what do you guys think out here? What do you think of this? First people to try the champagne outside from the importer. Yeah, I think so far this has been one of my personal highlights.
Great.
And where can we find this champagne?
Well, we actually just started working with Ruth Franz with Henri's Reserve. She's going to be one of the first people that you're ever going to see it on the internet from. Will be with Ruth. We sell here locally. I think actually Europe Van is doing it out where you guys are in California, but we basically deal with Illinois. But for the national people, I would check out Ruth's site first because she's really the first one to jump on this.
Right, and we're going to talk to Ruth in just a minute, but I know Rich has, I think, a question for you.
Well, this whole introduction makes me wonder whether the grower champagnes are, within, say, price tiers, going to be better values than the big house champagnes.
That's a very good point. I don't think we've touched on that yet.
Sure, I think it's kind of subjective, but I mean, if you look at this wine, this is probably going to be a $45 range of wine. The growers put it this way, 15 years ago when I first started with these, they were a lot cheaper. We were seeing stuff that was coming out in retail in like the $29 and $30 mark, and everything's gone up a good deal since then. That was back in right after Terry started bringing them in the late 90s. So, but they're still actually, particularly in the NV Brut category, but even up into luxury cuvées from some of the growers, they're in many cases a fourth of the price of many very famous wines, I would say. So value-wise, they're tremendous values. I think you get a lot of wine in the bottle. Champagne is not cheap in the first place. It's a very laborious process. It's hard to make. So you're always going to pay a little more than regular wine. But in the category of champagnes in general, the growers are a remarkable value for how much you get out of the bottle in distinctiveness.
Fantastic. Well, we really appreciate your time, and a perfect segue. Look for this on Henri's Reserve, and I think we're going to have the opportunity to talk to Ruth Franz right now for a couple of minutes. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks you guys.
Cheers. We'll see you soon.
All right.
Ruth, how are you? Okay, hold on. We're switching you over. Just be patient. Any questions from the Twitter sphere?
It's interesting, the conversations we've been having with all the contributors has sparked this whole grower versus negotiant, which we touched on very early on.
Right.
So I think probably any more information that we can give in terms of what motivates the growers to go out on their own.
Right.
Going from the security of having a contract year after year to going and do it on their own. And it's more than just going out and producing this. As you and I know from the work that we do in marketing,
sure,
that's one of the essentials in wine. So a lot of these are farmers.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
how do they go about with their marketing and sales?
I think that is a fantastic question. And maybe if we still have you with us, I think the audio of Robert.
Hang on, we're getting them back.
Yeah, there we go.
So Andrew has a great question. I think he's picked up on this from the discussions on Twitter too. What motivates a grower to leave the safety of a champagne house and blaze their own trail, because it's not guaranteed money, right?
It's a great question, because you really have to. I really think it comes down to your passion for your own champagne, because it's a lot easier to make money selling your grapes. That's for sure. I think you just have to have a burning desire to put your own wine together. And it's in most of these cases, I mean, most of these growers that we have are under 5,000 cases of wine. It's tiny amounts. They have to have people to introduce the wines here. They just don't have any marketing power to do that. So it really is, it's their own decision. And that's what you see when you meet these guys, and how they decide which importer to go with is who's on the same wavelength as them in their thought process. They're very proud. I mean, it's one of those things where we're doing this because we love it. That's really why they're doing it. There's no other reason, because it's much it's a much better money investment to be selling grapes off than trying to go to the investment of having a cellar and all the things that go along with aging the wines and all that sort of thing. So it's people. It really comes down to people.
Do you think it's? Let me ask this loaded question, and I'm sure will cause some stir, maybe, especially amongst the houses. Are grower champagnes, farmer fizzes, more authentic than the big guys?
That's a dangerous.
Is the hand built Lotus more authentic than the Ford Focus?
Well,
and sorry about that.
You can't. Here's what I'd say. They say you can't really blame the producers for this. It's the way that the whole region was marketed in the first place. If you look at every other great wine in France, it's all about vineyards and families and specificity. And I mean, look at Montrachet and Romani Conti and all these vineyards where it's all about the site. Where Champagne is this large area, about 34,000 hectares with one AOC. So it was set up to not be along the lines of the way every great wine in France and really the rest of the world is promoted. So authentic, I'd say I like to use more the word distinctive. Distinctive because you're basically coming from a larger area to a smaller area. I think that's what you see. And the fact is they're going to be different. And some people don't like things to be different. They like them to be the same all the time. And you're never going to get that here. It's going to be like any real wine, and that it's going to be different most of it each year that you try it. When you try a different disgorgement, you're going to try a wine that's a little bit different than the last time. So you have to want that. My best thing for that I came up with analogous is for the ladies. I always say if you had to wear 3 pairs of shoes for the rest of your life, you'd never do it. So why do you do it with your wines? Let yourself have more pleasure by trying more things and more distinctive things.
That's great, good point. And I think the houses, the large houses, have to be commended because they create opportunity for the small player.
They do, and they do a good job of making a high quality product available, because the little guys can't do it, available to the whole world. And they do an excellent job of that. And they make it possible for these champagnes to even exist in the market, for sure.
Any other questions?
There's a couple people asking about food and wine pairings, but I think we're going to come to that.
Yeah, we are definitely going to come to food and wine pairings. And our goal here is to break the normal convention of foie gras, of caviar and some of the foo-foo stuff, which is absolutely fantastic. We did that last year for the second annual Champagne Day. This year we're going to do something totally different because it is our belief champagne should be enjoyed every day. But we're just about to get to Ruth France. So I want to switch over to Ruth, and she's going to tell us a little bit about holiday and champagne wine pairings. But again, I want to talk to Ruth first, if we can switch to Ruth. About Henri's Reserve, and I know you're doing a lot to push grower champagnes, and you have a fantastic site, henrireserve.com. You carry some of the Michael Skurnik wines as well as Robert's wines. Talk to me a little bit about what it means to be a online retailer of these boutique items.
Well, I guess it all starts with why we're doing what we're doing. And you all stole all my words earlier on. I was right, just as Catherine started talking. We're all about discovery. And my background is I had been in the wine and spirits business, and I had the great fortune of having a very well-funded corporate Amex card. And I would go around to great restaurants, such as Charlie Trotter's and French Laundry and wherever else, and I saw these names I'd never heard of Champagne. And then I went to Champagne. I discovered, oh my gosh, there are 4,000 Champagne houses. And then I started entertaining with some at home. And my friend said, oh, where do I get that? Where do I get that? And I said, well, it's somebody. So our whole mission is to give people access to these champagnes and help them learn and discover, what Robert says of having more than 3 pairs of shoes. The average, the people that I run, I'm not a wine geek. I live with people who think they're wine geeks, but they're not. The whole concept of even champagne styles is different. The concept of different regions of champagne is different. So we're trying to open that world to people. So how's this? That's it in a nutshell. And we have this wonderful guy named Henri who takes champagne. He's totally fictitious, though.
So tell me a little bit. You're doing it a little bit different, right? You're taking, maybe we talked a little bit about the geekery of the wine business and wine world, where we can all sit there and extol all the different virtues of wine and the tech notes and the tasting notes. Henri's Reserve is really about more than that, right? It's about the lifestyle of a fantastic product.
Our tagline is Joie de Champagne. So everything that we do is really about enabling people to have fun with champagne. So we help them, we guide them to great new champagnes. We have, in a second, I guess we'll show our Henri's Tasting Soiree, which enables someone to taste a range of champagnes and also to host a party. We have a product, and that one was a really funny one. It was basically a non-wine geek saying to me, how do I figure out what to have, Ruthie? I don't even know where to start here. And then we have another thing called Dinner is Served, where we're helping people plan the perfect dinner party or the perfect holiday dinner and pairing champagnes throughout the meal.
Fantastic. Great. So talk to us a little bit about holidays and champagnes. I know you have some recommendations, and champagne can, again, you can start the meal off, take it all the way through dessert. Tell us a little bit about the different tasting kits you've
Sure.
created.
Well, let's start with the first one because it's really designed I'm going to click a button here, so hopefully I see you. Okay. I'm going to start with the first one, which is Henri's Tasting Soiree. Okay. And that's really about, I'm not sure if you have it there or not, but that's
Tell me which ones are in it, and I can quickly assemble.
Sure. That would be the Jumenet, the Villiers Rosé, and the Fleury. Looks like you have them.
And, the Fleury, yes. And the last one was?
Did you have the Jumenet, the Fleury, and the Villiers Rosé?
I do, yes.
Yes, there you go. There you
right
go.
Here, yes.
So what this kit, the Tasting Soiree, is about is it's really for 6 to 8 people, depending on what crowd you run with, how many people will work for. But it's to let people try grower producer champagnes, but then champagnes of different styles, different regions. So we start with a Blanc de Blanc, and we provide tasting notes and food pairings and tips on how to chill it and how to open it and blah, blah, blah. But so we start with the Jumenet, going lightest to heaviest, and this kit introduces people to a Blanc de Blanc. We come with a little tasting sheet. I don't know if you have a little tasting sheet there.
Sacrilege.
Bubbling over.
Thank you, Alan.
So we start with a Blanc de Blanc, introduce them to, this is 100% Chardonnay, which, the average bear hasn't yet discovered that, so 100% Chardonnay. And then we take them to the Villiers Rosé, which is a very Pinot-driven rosé. And by the way, it's our bestseller. If you are a rosé fan, this is the one that wins every taste we ever do. Except I'm sure the Bazin will outperform it, Robert. Actually, we did a tasting of the Bazins, and the rosé was very, very popular. So then we introduced them to a rosé. And then lastly, Fleury is a Blanc de Noir, which, of course, is very, is rare, and 100% Pinot. And again, the average bear hasn't had a Blanc de Noir. They don't know it's 100%. And this one, as you all were talking earlier, lets them sort of go on the adventure into the land of biodynamic champagnes. So that's basically our introductory kit to grower producer champagnes as well as other styles of champagne.
And is this your most popular?
This is our most popular, and it's so funny because when we launched the site, it was all about access, and then we learned it was really about helping people discover this world. The art director of the site said, I need a tasting kit. What do I try? So we made a tasting kit.
Right. Unfortunately, shame of shames, the Blanc de Blanc is corked, and that will happen since cork is a natural closure product. So we'll move quickly on to one of the studio audience to taste along. So we'll go to the
that's surprising.
It is, but again, things happen. But we're excited to try this rosé. So you were talking about the kit and its popularity?
Well, I think the reason it's so popular is not only does it introduce people to these champagnes, but it's like, we call it the party in a box.
Yep.
Marie Claire magazine, we're lucky, and a number of the major magazines are featuring us in their gift guides. They're positioning it as party in a box. Get a couple hors d'oeuvres. We charge about $160 for this. So, you get some good Parmesan, some prosciutto, and a few chocolates, and you're good to go on a party. So that's the whole concept here.
Fantastic. Well, we're tasting the rosé right now, and it's beautiful. Can you talk to us a little bit about the rosé? Yeah,
this is it's Henri Billiot, and I love this rosé because it's very full-bodied. It's about 80% Pinot Noir, 20% Chardonnay, so it gives you that very full-bodied rosé, which is great. You'll see in a second we're pairing it with our holiday dinners with, I call it, you can pair it with anything pink, is all the way to barbecue. And it's just perfect for its versatility.
Fantastic. It's a great champagne. And then you said the next one we're about to try, the Fleury, is biodynamic. Is that correct?
Yes, it's biodynamic. It's one of the first biodynamic vineyards in Champagne. Many of you probably know L'Armandier also. That's another. There are probably just a handful of biodynamic champagne houses. This is one of the first ones. This is very rich, very full-bodied. It's a great way to introduce people to champagne when they try the Jumenet on one side being very light, and then this one being incredibly rough, Pinot.
It's got a beautiful nose. I mean, just really powerful already on the nose. Very expressive.
Yeah, the definition of rich and toasty. And
so, how do you go about selecting these champagnes? When you're putting something like this together, what is your motivation?
Sure. Well, the motivation, this one is really to introduce people, to push them as far apart as possible, and to teach them, give them a chance to adventure in champagne. So, we have again, the styles, the range of styles, everywhere from a Blanc to Montagne de Reims, to biodynamic, and really just sort of opening the world to them, which previously was basically, very fine champagnes, but purchased based on brand name versus, a different style, a different combination of the three champagne grapes, et cetera. And as Ron talked about, the lack of an AOC, giving people an opportunity to say, oh my gosh, champagne is different from regions. Terroir can be extremely important, just like in wine.
Fantastic. Well, these are great. What are some of your favorite holiday food and wine pairings?
Well, did we send you the kit Dinner is Served? We've created one that's 4 champagnes, and it is all about going from literally the aperitif all the way through the dessert. So we start with, again, a Blanc de Blanc, which we recommend pairing with obviously any shellfish. I love it with Parmesan, a Parmesan puff. And starting the holiday dinner or holiday party with something very light and elegant with a Blanc de Blanc. Then we bring out a rosé to pair with the main course. So whether you're having a filet or even Thanksgiving dinner, when you cover the turkey with cranberry sauce and you throw in your sweet potatoes with marshmallows, the rosé is nice and solid and can stand up to it. I think you and Catherine touched on that earlier, that people don't associate rosés with a main course, rosés with a barbecue, etc. So really trying to introduce people to that. And then our dinner served ends with a demi-sec, which will be great with pumpkin pie, will be great with pecan pie, chocolate mousse, whatever your decadent dessert of choice is.
So demi-sec is not something you see much of in the U.S. Interesting choice, and tell me a little bit about how you went about choosing this wine.
Sure. Well, in terms of choosing a demi-sec, obviously everyone associates champagne with birthday cake and weddings and desserts, but we really wanted to help people understand that, again, there are different types of styles of champagne, and that this demi-sec actually is obviously sweeter, It's a very Chardonnay-driven demi-sec, so it's light yet sweet. It's a beautiful, not too sweet though, and that you can use this to complement a sweet dessert or berries or chocolates or whatever, and really round out that you can have a full meal with champagnes paired throughout. And the thing we talk about is, you can do a beautiful dinner, but gosh, add the champagne on top of it, and it's a dazzling event that no one's going to forget.
I agree with that. Tell me a little bit about where can people find us if they're excited about what you had to say tonight and they go to the site. Easy to find?
Yes, we're very easy to find. It's Henri's Reserve, so Henry with an I, a Frenchman, Henri, and the second word reserve, and smush it together.com, henrisreserve.com.
So can you really hear me right now?
Craziest food and wine, champagne and wine pairing you've ever had.
Okay.
Yeah, the craziest, this may not be the craziest. I am a truffled popcorn fan with Blanc de Blanc. And then I've hosted 2 really awesome parties, one burgers and champagne and one pizza and champagne.
Right. And how did those turn out?
Rally, there you go. Add the champagne.
If your favorite champagne was a movie star?
Yeah.
Which one? We've had a lot of classics.
Yeah, well, here, we put it out to Facebook today and out to Twitter and out to email some people, and we got some of the ones we've talked about. We got Audrey Hepburn, we got Myrna Roy, we got Juliette Binoche, we got Amy Adams, but the one that was the best, full stop, is Marilyn Monroe. I mean, if you bathe in champagne, you are the ultimate champagne star. And I think the person who wrote it had a really good point. She was bubbly on the outside and complex on the inside. And I think that's a really good way to think about champagne.
That's a great answer. So I want to put it out here to the studio audience. What do you think about these champagnes? Any favorites that stick out? We have biodynamic all the way through demi-sec. Any ones?
Rosé.
The rosé?
Yeah.
I think we're gravitating towards rosé here. Any questions for Ruth from the Twitter sphere?
We're headed towards the food and wine.
We are.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the reaction to her interesting pairings that she just put out there.
Yeah, Ruth, I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us. HenriReserve.com, again, for these champagnes. We've had a grower champagne theme going on. We're going to have some of the heavy hitters and well knowns. So we're going to now talk to Total Wines and More. We have Taylor Barnaby with us. He can join us for a couple of minutes. He's going to talk about the direct imports that they have, grower champagnes as well. Taylor, you there? Maybe he's there. Can you hear us, Taylor? We might be having a little bit of audio issue.
Can you hear me now, Christian?
We can hear you. Yes, absolutely.
All right. There we go.
I'm putting your champagnes on the table right now as I speak. Talk to us a little bit about, most people think Total Wines and More. They think big retailer, mass market brands, but you opened my eyes that you have 6 fantastic grower champagnes that you import here directly into the U.S. Talk to us a little bit about those.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question we are big, but what that does is it gives us the opportunity to carry a lot of stuff. And one of the things we really like to do is scour the world, really, to try to find some of these smaller brands, these smaller producers that are just too small for a major importer or even a smaller importer and distributors in the States to work with. So most of these wines we're going to taste today are somewhere in the 500 case to a couple thousand case production. And the only way we're able to get them is if we, as a company, Total Wine, does the legwork. We go out there and we kind of pound the pavement and try to find some really good producers out there that have kind of been under the radar for the most part until recently, where we've been able to bring them in as kind of a direct import. So there's no other way to really get the wine unless we do it that way.
So talk to us about what's in your lineup. Pick a champagne we should try first and tell us a little bit about it.
So maybe we'll start from the top with Champagne Mailly. We're geographically at the top, I should say. So all 6 of these are from a different Grand Cru village. We're starting geographically at the top in Montagne-des-Reims. I'm going to pour some for myself, if you don't mind, as well.
Please, that's what this day is all about. We'd be disappointed if you didn't.
Absolutely. So I think, as one of the earlier guests was talking about, Montagne-des-Reims mostly or predominantly planted to Pinot Noir, and Mailly is no different. This is about 75% Pinot and about 25% Chardonnay. So you do get a little bit more of that fruity component to it. There's a little more of those red fruits, a little bit more of that strawberry kind of character amongst that yeasty kind of bread dough, toasty note as well. They do age a little bit longer in bottle. They're a little bit longer on the lees, so you are picking up probably some of those toasty notes as well, some of that autolysis. But Mailly, it is, I think they're about a couple thousand cases a year. They're actually a group of about 80 different producers. So officially, they're a négociant manipulant in that they're a separate company, but they're owned by 80 small producers really right in the heart of the village of Mailly, who all own maybe a hectare or a half hectare even, that kind of banded together after World War II to start this champagne house. So a little leaner, a little crisper. The fruit kind of comes out, I think, but hopefully you like that. I think the price points are nice as well.
Talk about the price points. We've had some questions. Andrew posed some great questions, and I think Rich as well, about price points of grower champagne versus regular, more mass available champagnes. What's the price point of the champagne?
Yeah, so what we're drinking now is $37.99. Everything we're drinking today will be in between $35.99 and $39.99 on our shelves, so $35 to $40. And there are, I mean, as I heard an earlier guest say, there's no question champagne is expensive to make. I mean, there's just such an intensive process to get it all done. But comparatively speaking to what's out there, a lot of these grower champagnes are still really great values because there's such an individuality. There's kind of an authenticness to the wines that I think the great big houses certainly can duplicate, but it's hard. It's hard that for them to be able to do that. And at the smaller scale, we have this real kind of artisanal approach that can make a really distinctive style of wine for, comparatively speaking, not that much money in the world of champagne, I guess I should say.
Agreed. What do you think, Catherine?
So I think it's a great champagne, and it's nice. It's a nice way to get a product that might be $20 more if you had maybe distributor markup. You know, your direct import. Is that correct?
Correct. Right.
So that there's no middleman between you and the producer. So that right there already is building in instant value for the customer. And you guys are going out and selecting it, so it's almost like a custom product for you that you've selected. And for the growers on the other end, 80 of these growers with a plot each, a little lot behind their house. What an amazing thing to be proud of, to get together, make a wine. It's marketed, and we're talking about it today.
Right.
And it's really beautiful, and it's nice again that here's a champagne that's got its own unique style. But there's a story behind it, the story of the 80 growers getting together and all of that, and without that extra, markup that you have from the distributor.
I always say, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I think 95% of what makes a wine great happens outside the bottle, right? it's the person you're sharing it with, the experience you're having. I mean, the product in and of itself has to be pretty stellar, but tasting it in a vacuum changes the wine. And I think having the story and connecting with where it comes from and understanding where it comes from elevates the experience, wouldn't you say?
I don't know. I think I would taste this in a vacuum.
You would?
I think you would. I think I could.
I certainly wouldn't turn down a glass in the bathroom.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, I think that is one of the best stories about the grower champagnes, that really across the board, is that there is a real story behind, and whether it's 80 small producers that banded together, or it's a 5th generation producer that has just been kind of working their way up the ladder over the last 150 years, whatever it is, there's always that story behind it that adds, like you said, I mean, it really adds such an interesting part of drinking the wine.
Fantastic. What's the next one you're going to walk us through?
So the next one, moving just a little bit south into the village of Bouzy. This is George Vassell. This is about 90% Pinot Noir and 10% Chardonnay. So you actually, I think as you taste it on the nose, you get a little bit of that Pinot fruit to it. There's a little bit of that kind of gamey strawberry, gamey rhubarb almost. It tends to be coming from that Pinot fruit. Very typical for the region, I think. Not a hugely rich or very, not a champagne of a whole lot of cut, but more of a broader, kind of more textured style of champagne. But again, it's a very distinctive style, and I think that's what these houses really bring to the table, is such a distinctiveness to it.
Yeah, I have to admit, we put that one toe to toe with the Henriot in the beginning of the show, grower versus larger house. So we enjoy that. I think
it's lovely.
I think we really enjoyed that champagne. So cheers to that. What's the price on that one?
That's $34.99.
Oh,
wow.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
We'll give you our addresses. We'll all get a case. Thanks so much for your generosity.
Please do.
So what's the next one? I think the geographic theme. So where are you taking us next?
Correct. So we're moving just a little bit south now. We're still in Montagne des Reims, but we're going to move down to Aubagné, the village of Aubagné. The producer here is Bernard Bremeau. Bernard is actually, and we were talking about generations, this is now, the winemaker here is a fourth generation winemaker. The plots were kind of purchased back in the late 1800s. They were selling fruit for many, many years until about the late 50s, I believe, when they kind of struck out on their own, very small. They were still selling a good percentage of the fruit off to the bigger houses, and just making a very small amount for their own cellars or maybe the local restaurants. And that very, very slowly just built up over time to where at this point they're using all of their fruit themselves. They're selling all of their champagne that they make by themselves without having to sell off fruit to some of the bigger guys in the neighborhood. So I'm going to have a little sip here.
What do you think of this? This one has some great complexity to it, doesn't it?
It does. It's really smoky,
yeah.
And it's got a lot of pear fruit to it, pear and apple, and it's really kind of fruity and minerally and smoky, all of that, kind of all together. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I love the layers of it. You kind of, and it has, I think you mentioned in the beginning, kind of that a little bit of stinkiness to it, but it's alluring. Alluring funk, right? Exactly. No,
I agree. It's really good.
Not a gym bag funk, right? Exactly, alluring. We're coming up with a lot of our own made up descriptors here. So I think we're going to trademark Farmer Fizz, alluring funk. What else do you?
Champagne just brings it out of you.
What do you guys think?
Come on!
Great. Too much drinking. There's no such thing. So I think it's left them speechless. That's how good it is.
And it's really chalky too at the same time. I mean, it's got chalky minerality and almost a little maybe talcum.
Yeah, on the finish for sure. I get a little bit of like a butterscotch kind of note right in the middle of the palate too, right before that chalkiness kind of hits on the palate too as well. But I think as you move a little bit further south, maybe you get a little bit more texture to it, a little bit more firmness from the wine that we got from the first two. I think the aromatics are a little bit different as well. And it's I know we're kind of hitting on this point, but it's so nice to taste champagnes right in the same price point from 100 miles away, but so distinctly different at the same time, and all classically champagne.
Price point?
Price point on Bernard is $39.99.
$39.99. Wow. I mean, you're blowing me away at least, and you'll make my accountant happy. My wife.
Well, if you give her this champagne, she'll
exactly. She'll sign the checks and talk to us about the next one.
All right. So the next one, now we're going to move down to the Côte de Blanc. This is Franck Bonville from the village of Avize. The winemaker right now is Olivier Bonville, who's a third-generation winemaker in the family. It's a very similar story to Bernard Bermeau. We're selling fruit for many, many years and just kind of ever so slowly started to keep some of it for themselves and work it up a little bit. So this is 100% Chardonnay. As you taste it, we certainly get maybe a little bit more of that toastiness, maybe a little bit more of that kind of clean, more linear kind of style. I think some hosts were talking a little bit earlier about very classic, the Côte de Blanc. But again, I could probably take up all my time just talking about the aromatics, so I'll shut up and drink some more champagne.
Great. We're just getting in our glass right now. So why did Total Wine decide to go out and import their own champagne?
Yeah, it's a great question. At any point, if there's quality out there that we think we can get into the stores at a good price, then that's what we're looking for. And that's the overall goal of everything we're trying to do, is get the best quality for the best price on the shelves. So if directly importing champagne is the way to go, then that's what we're going to do. And whether it's Champagne or Bordeaux or Tuscany or Australia or wherever that quality is and we can get at it from these smaller producers, that's what we're looking for. But I think about 5 or 6 years ago is when we really, as a company, kind of first got really excited about this. As we got a couple of these, we were able to make some relationships for a couple of these producers. They really took off in our stores as our wine associates in the stores kind of tasted them and just fell in love right from the beginning. And we carry up most of the bigger producers as well. But when there's, as you were saying, when there's that story behind it, our guys in the stores really get excited about that, and they can taste something, and they think they can bring maybe a little bit more distinctive quality or more distinctive style of wine to their customer for even a lower price. Then that's a win for everybody. That's a big win for our customers, and we get to show them something that our customers might not have tried had we not pointed it out to them.
Wow, that's great. What do you think?
Yeah, it's great. It is. I agree. It's a win-win, Taylor, because your sales staff is personally invested in this. They know it. It's not a store brand, but it's something that you guys went out, you searched these producers out, you tasted the wine, you can get behind it, and it's not a typical sales pitch. It's, try this juice, it's really good, and I think that is really great, because the customer then kind of feels like, yeah, this is just not a sales pitch, this is something that this person really believes in. Right. And it is a win-win all around, and then you add in the almost like a discount because there's no middleman there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's great for everybody.
I'm really impressed with all these wines.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. Do we have Total Wines here in California?
Yeah, Taylor, when are you invading the Northern California?
Not that we don't have so many great retailers already here.
Not invading. Slowly. We do have a couple stores up in the Sacramento area. There's two up. There's one in Sacramento. There's one in Arden. There's one coming very soon in Folsom. And then we have about 8 stores in Southern California in the LA County, Orange County area as well. We don't know exactly where we're going to go yet. We're kind of feeling it out as we go and trying to figure out where we think the best areas for us are. But slow and steady growth, and we'll figure it out as we go. I would imagine at some point we'll get up to San Francisco. I don't know that we have a specific timeline, but we'll get there.
But there's this beautiful thing called the interwebs, right? That we can access.
There is, absolutely. It's a great point. TotalWine.com. We can certainly ship to California. There's about 18 other states we can ship to as well. So one day we'll get those laws loosened up and be able to ship all around the country. But yes, everything is available at TotalWine.com for the exact prices we're talking about.
Great. Well, everyone out there on Twitter or get some questions for Taylor. We're down to two two wines?
Couple of questions.
Sure.
And what I love about what Taylor's doing is he's kind of taking us by the hand and walking us through the Champagne appellation.
Yeah.
But he's talking about districts within it. So I brought up a map while I've been sitting here, and it's fascinating. A small area, but there are such diverse wines that come from there. So maybe we can talk a little bit more about the differences in those sub-areas,
Great.
sub-regions, subcategories. I'm not sure what the technical term is.
Sure, any of those work.
Okay.
Sure.
That'd be a question for Catherine, I think.
Or Taylor.
Or the two of you would be great. Give us a little overview of Champagne in general. Montagne de Reims, we have all the Bouzy, we have the different areas, Côte de Blanc as well. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that as well.
All right, I'll start, and then I'll maybe let Catherine kind of fill in as well. I'm sure she could probably talk even more about it than myself. But I think Montagne de Reims is a little bit cooler up top, just being a little bit on the more northern side. Hence, we see a little bit more of the Pinot Noir coming out of that area. Then you have right up in the middle, you have the Vallée de Marne, which we actually see a lot of Pinot Meunier grown in that area, as well as Chardonnay and Pinot Noir as well. Right in that middle in the Vallée de Marne, I don't know that we see too many of the great champagnes coming out of, but there is good value there. And then as you go down, you have the Côte de Blanc, where now you see some of the best of the best. I think that the most prestigious houses are pretty much centered around the Côte de Blanc. And in the next village that we're going to get to in Les Menil, it probably has some of the most prestigious houses in the world as well. But Catherine, I'm sure you have some more thoughts as well.
Well, sure. I mean, the whole idea with Champagne is that it has been typically a product that's been blended from various vineyard parcels throughout the region. And so a grower might have a Champagne house might have their production facility, their headquarters in Epernay, for example, but then they go out in the field and they even collect the grapes and press them in the field very gently and then bring them in. And then the whole process of blending, putting together kind of this whole, this Champagne, a final product that's been blended with vineyards from all over the region. But it is important to look and look at where are we getting the best Pinot Noir. So as you were saying, the Montagne de Reims, best Pinot Noir. Where is the best Chardonnay? Côte de Blanc, best Chardonnay. So we're looking at these areas of, gee, I want to make a wine, and where is the best Pinot Noir? Well, that's where I'm going to go and seek my fruit. Or if perhaps I was born there and I have that fruit growing in my backyard. And I think so for the small guys, having where they live really influences what kind of wine they make, because they're making wine with fruit that is growing in their region. So I think, again, that's another difference of the Grand Marque champagnes and the small producers, because the small producers really aren't going to go out there and say, hey, let me blend in some fruit from another area. They're making wine with fruit from their locality, and there's nothing that can demonstrate that better than Les Menil, which is a beautiful, beautiful small area for some people would say the best Chardonnay in all of Champagne.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as we get down to Menil, as I was saying, we certainly see some of the most prestigious houses coming out of that area, and for good reason. I mean, if you look at the vineyard areas, it's some of the deepest limestone in Champagne, and hence we get some pretty good Chardonnay out of the area as well. The next one, Christian, did you pour one of the Menils?
I poured the Robert. Is it Pierre? Moncuit. Yeah.
Moncuit. Okay.
Robert. Yeah.
Robert, right. So I think
a little bit about Robert.
Sure, yeah. As we get into a Menil, and here we start to pick up a lot more of that bread dough, that toasty kind of quality to it. Both of these next two do spend more time on the lees than any of the four we've tasted, up to 3 years actually for Pertois Morissette that we'll taste next. So about 2 years for Robert Moncuit on the lees here. So we pick up a lot of that, but what's so classic about Menil, I think, as a whole, is that you get that nice acid kind of clean cut to it, and then on the finish there's a real firmness. I mean, the wines don't fade away easily. They really just stick almost to your mouth. For me, with when I'm eating, I really like to have champagnes from Menil with a much more formidable food. I mean, duck, game hen, things like that can really stand up to wines like this from Menil specifically, because I think they have that nice firmness on the finish that really kind of speaks to the village.
And I think if you look at a champagne like Salon, for example, perhaps the most famous producer from this area, alongside with Krug, of course, those wines, those champagnes actually have incredible longevity. And in fact, Salon is one of the few that you say is not ready upon release because it is so firm and often austere in its use. And so that firmness is evident in this wine as well. And that, you could say, is a nice kind of stylish description of the area.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I mean, the old word terroir, it's probably one of the most abused words out there, but it speaks, it comes out, it certainly comes out in these Menil producers.
So talk to us about price again.
So Robert Moncuy is $34.99.
Wow.
And how much is a bottle of Salon in your store?
I think we're at $249.99 right now.
Wow. For a case.
No.
I wish.
Do you have Cru Clos de Menil in your store as well?
Yes, we do. Cru Clos de Menil is $699.99.